Now, I like Ben Shapiro 90% of the time, but it hasn't been a great 24 hours for Ben Shapiro. He posted a show on YouTube and people aren't taking too kindly to it, and for good reason. He essentially was really showing his neocon colors with this one, accusing Julian Assange of being a Russian asset and exposing American soldiers to harm. Now, first of all, Shapiro cites the New York Times as evidence of some of the things he's claiming, which is odd to me. Was it not less than 2 weeks ago that Shapiro couldn't criticize the New York Times and the mainstream media enough over the Trump-Russian collusion hoax? Was Shapiro not just laying into Rachel Maddow for contrived conspiracies about Russian collusion based on flimsy and underwhelming evidence? And here Shapiro is doing the same thing with Assange. I have yet to see any real evidence that Assange is in the back pocket of Russia, yet Shapiro is doing exactly what he just relentlessly lambasted the media for doing. And these claims that Wikileaks have put American soldiers into harm's way seem to be unfounded as well. There have been investigations and hearings trying to pin down any real harm that came to US soldiers stemming from Wikileaks, and nothing has been found, or at least the connections are rather vague. At worst, you might be able to say that Wikileaks made a risky move. Well, you have to ask yourself, is making a risky move made up for by the fact that you have exposed corruption within the media, corruption within government, backroom deals that screw over citizens, rigged elections, and you've enlightened citizens to the insanity their governments have been involved in? I would say that makes up for it by a severe magnitude. And regardless, if you want to talk about U.S. soldiers being put into harm's way, how about criticizing the absurd U.S. foreign policy that places them in harm's way in the first place, having them police and patrol the world over? Now, there is direct evidence that our foreign policy has led to the needless deaths of U.S. soldiers in that regard, and that's just a small side note, but I think it puts it into perspective how out of touch Ben Shapiro is being here. Anyone who exposes the bloated underbelly of governments is fine by me, and just because they may have, in some ambiguous way, put a kink in the plan of our terrible foreign policy, I think that's made up for by the fact that individuals under the boot of governments have been informed of just how corrupt their officials are. So I am at a loss as to what Shapiro is talking about here. Is he not for smaller government? Is he not against corruption? Is Ben Shapiro not able to see how Julian Assange has immensely benefited the world and influenced people's way of thinking in terms of not just trusting their governments outright and not automatically believing in the benevolence of their political elite, simply because those political elites tell the citizens you have nothing to fear and we have nothing to hide? Well, people might think twice now because of the dirt WikiLeaks has exposed, and ultimately I think this is a good thing, and I think it greatly makes up for any sort of opaque accusation that maybe WikiLeaks put some soldiers into harm's way. Ben Shapiro's perspective here seems to be severely lacking, and I would hope he comes around on it. But that has to be it for right now. Like and subscribe and all that jazz. Have a good one.